World building is one of the most important things you will ever do in your manga, comic, or light novel, especially when you're presenting a unique world in your story. Today I'll be giving you 7 crucial tips that will take your world building to the next level. One of the most common mistakes people make when presenting world building in their stories is they try to cram as much information as possible in a short amount of time at the beginning of the story, and usually this has the opposite effect. Usually when readers begin learning about a new world, they don't want to read a long description of all of the details, and this usually has the effect of taking the readers out of the scene and making them feel like they are learning about your world rather than directly participating in the world you're creating. So instead, what you really want to do is you want to learn that immersion comes from experience, and that people and characters that live in your world don't explain things that are normal. So instead of having a description and having characters explaining their daily life, instead you really want to show it. A good example of this is Attack on Titan. In Attack on Titan, we learn about the walls and the titans with the story. We learn about it from Eren being a child when he first experiences the threat of the Titans firsthand. Eren is slightly naive because he's a child before he sees the true danger of the Titans for himself. There is also many other different elements of the world that are displayed with the story, such as the military system, the rules and the roles, the religions and the government and the politics. And none of these are actively explained. Instead, we learn more about it throughout the story. So as the characters learn more about these details, so does the audience. When creating a world, the world that the audience is experiencing right now is likely a world that has already existed for a really long time. The world doesn't magically come into being the second you create the character. Instead, you want to really think about what this world was before your character really became the main character in your story. So when you are presenting history in your world, you want to hint at this history rather than summarizing it or explaining it. And I think a really great example of overall incredible world building is the game Morrowind. It's actually one of my all-time favorite games. And what it does really well is it hints really well at history that the main character does not know and has not experienced. There are ancient Dwemer ruins everywhere, there are NPCs referencing past events, great houses that have had long-standing rivalries, there's ghosts, ruins, and abandoned forts, and all of these imply history. And so this is something you really need to do with your own world building. When you're creating your fictional worlds, think about how you can present that history in the world, not through what your characters explain, but what was left behind after those events. And this brings me to my third tip, which is readers understand information gradually through context rather than explanation. And this is especially important when it comes to unique words and terms in your world. When you have a specific word or term that no one has ever heard of before, instead of saying, oh, this word means this, the characters would likely not do that. Instead, readers will likely understand what a certain word means through context and through characters describing it, and this mimics how people learn language in real life. A good example of this, I think, is old school RuneScape, where players hear the names of the gods before they understand what they really mean, and there's so many other terms in the game that players don't really know or understand until they experience it firsthand. Place names and locations are revealed slowly through quests or exploration, and players don't fully understand the context of how one event may affect another or how one location was affected by something until they actually experience it for themselves. And so when you're world building in your story, think about how you can present certain elements of your world slowly through that exploration and allow the readers to really discover it along with the characters. Number 4 is all about how, when presenting your world, the culture is more immersive than the lore. So these are the little details that make the world feel more significant. Those little details are more important than you may realize. So think about things like unique greetings, insults, holidays, funeral customs, food, games, fashion, or superstitions. And all of these little things make the world feel like it actually exists, that there are actually characters living in this world. So rather than simply thinking about your governments or political systems that you're creating, think about those smaller moments that make everyday life important. And a good example of this is Avatar: The Last Airbender, because they have different architecture, clothing, philosophy, fighting styles, music, food, and values, and every aspect reflects all of these unique cultures in the world. Number 5 is how world building should create conflict. So when you're presenting world building in your story, think about how you can use it to actively create obstacles and external conflicts in the story. So for an example, there might be a society where magic is illegal. A city that is built on giant moving creatures, a culture where lying is impossible, or a kingdom where there's a really unique or possibly hard to get form of currency. So in all of these examples, there is active conflicts created by the world itself, and this makes the world a potentially dangerous or difficult place to travel. You want to make it difficult for your characters because the more challenges there are, the more interesting it will be to introduce your world. A good example of this is one of my all-time favorite mangas, which is Seven Seeds. And this is a manga set after a meteorite wipes out Earth and there's only a few survivors who woke up after many years after the rest of the Earth was destroyed. And the world that they wake up to is actively dangerous. You really see how this world is dangerous. There's huge insects, dangerous natural disasters, deadly predators, and even people fighting amongst each other. So you can really see firsthand how deadly the world can be. So when you're presenting your world, don't make it easy for your audience. Unless, of course, you are creating something more like slice of life, where the world may not be as deadly, but this doesn't mean the world can't still create conflict. Even in a world where there's not as much action or battle scenes, the world can still have dangers. Maybe there is potentially dangerous plants, maybe there is unique characters with unique abilities, and maybe everyone doesn't always get along. But this makes your world feel real, and when your audience experiences your world, it will make the world feel a lot more natural. Number 6 is all about limitations. Limitations make the world feel believable. When you create a world that seems perfect, it doesn't actually feel genuine. When you're looking at real world building and good world building, you will notice that most of these societies are focused on the flaws or limitations within them. And I think a great example of this in anime is Psycho Pass. So this is all about the Sybil system. It's set in a futuristic society where crime is predicted before it happens, and everyone is constantly monitored in this system to prevent potential crime. And at first it seems like this Sybil system is flawless, but eventually innocent people become judged as criminals and dangerous people learn how to exploit the system. So even the system itself ends up having moral contradictions. So when you are world building, think about how you can create limitations in your world that will make it more interesting to see how your characters change the world they're in or overcome those limitations. And number 7 is every detail should imply more. Great worlds should always feel larger than what we see. What we really show in world building as a storyteller is really only a small part of the world, but the rest should be implied. So instead of explaining 10 kingdoms and showing each of these kingdoms in detail, which might feel a little bit overwhelming, we can mention one distant kingdom, which implies that there are many more out there. There might be someone who has come from a distant location and they have a specific accent or they have a specific style of clothing, which shows that they are from this specific location in your world. There might be other characters complaining about trade routes or different taxes from a certain location, indicating another area in your world. There might be another character who fought in a battle or a war at a different location in your world, which implies that that location is dangerous. So you don't need to go into great depth on every location and explain what is happening, but you can show how characters are affected by it. A great example of this is in Naruto, where we just start in one village, but then other villages are mentioned later on, and these villages are hinted at long before we actually end up seeing them. And so there are different characters that mention past wars and events. There are characters who have different clothing and fighting styles depending on where they are from. The 5 great nations are treated as established history, but we learn more about little details throughout the plot and legendary ninjas that the readers haven't met yet. So the world always feels bigger than the little part that we are currently seeing. And this is what you need to apply to your own world building. You need to think about how you can take a world that is much bigger and present it in a smaller scale in your story. You as the author can understand the full extent of your world, but the readers who are experiencing it should only get a small part before you slowly reveal the rest of it over the course of the journey. So thank you so much for joining me in today's video, everyone. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know what kind of fictional worlds you're creating, because I would love to hear your thoughts, and I'm sure others would love to hear your thoughts too. If you want to take this a step further, check out my World Building Mastery course. It's available on my website, and it literally contains everything you need to know to develop your world from beginning to end. It takes you through developing unique character types, unique locations and geography, weather systems, seasons, different cultures and religions, education systems. Basically every single element that you've ever considered for your world is included in this course in an abundance of different resources and a workbook where you can write your ideas along with every single chapter. So if you want to take your fictional world to the next level, check it out in the description box down below. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!